Good morning, everyone. As you will recall, we've been doing a series. We started with comparing climbing Mount Everest to climbing the chakras and the importance of a base camp or stabilizing oneself in the Anahata chakra. That was our first presentation. Second presentation was reading Gurudeva's fourth dimension. Anahata chakra relates to the fourth dimension, which we did last time. So today we're moving on to the fifth dimension, which relates to vishuddha chakra. And as it's a bit long, we're just going to do half of it. So here we go, fifth dimension, the mind of light. The perspective that all is well in the world, the experience that everything is as it should be, perfect right now, is of the fifth dimension. In this state, we realize a great bliss, a comprehensive, all-encompassing acceptance of the universe as it is, which reveals that the whole of existence is working proportionately one with another. Everything is right, just right, and if you moved even one thing, you wouldn't want to move one thing. You wouldn't want to change or improve one thing, or stop something or start something, because everything is all right. Now, you would never feel that way in the third dimension, that's for sure. Or even the fourth, which would inspire philosophical discourse. In other words, we'd want to discuss the nature of the world rather than accepting it. The fifth dimension is powerful. It eradicates concepts of imperfection and the flash vision of perfect harmony of all things. It is pure insight. Then insight is translated to the fourth dimension, where it can be comprehended by the outer consciousness of man. Metaphysicians call the fifth dimension the mind of light, for it is the superconscious area from which the clear white light is inwardly seen to fill the head. Others call it God. As man comes into the sixth dimension, that light extends throughout the physical body and can even be seen in the feet as he walks. So in the fifth dimension, we see the light filling the head, but in the sixth dimension, it fills the whole body. When people function in the fifth dimension, they are not out of touch with daily realities. It makes them extremely alert and bright. They're right there. They see things that have to be done and do them. Since they draw from a vast storehouse of energy and a broad evolutionary vantage point, they even do unfamiliar tasks with confidence, as though they had performed it 1,000 times. They haven't done it before, but they have. They feel they have. Nothing seems strange or awkward. Everything is familiar, and they bring grace into every department of life. This next one is helpful, understanding the fifth dimension. In the beginning, we discovered the fifth dimension only through flashes, brief insights. People have had intuitive flashes that have altered and changed the pattern of their entire life. The still small voice, or the inner voice, comes directly from the fifth dimension. The third eye functions from the fifth and sixth dimensions. Then one of the difficulties comes, that of translating knowledge and insight into a conceptual understanding. Very often, fifth dimensional insight is so deep, so subtle, that we cannot label it and therefore cannot reconstruct it in our memory patterns. We think, oh, this is so clear, so obvious, I could never forget it. 10 minutes later, we are struggling to maintain the continuity of the experience, which, dreamlike, begins to fade. Yet as we become more and more acquainted with these strata, the memory is impressed easily on the physical brain cells, and the fifth dimension comes more into focus for us. In the fifth dimension of the mind, the total evolution of form is perceived. When we see a flower, we not only see it as it is at that moment, but simultaneously actually see the stages of its life from creation to preservation to disintegration. This is where we see life in a blade of grass and the universe in a grain of sand. All things are within all things. The fifth dimension is not timeless, but it has no consciousness of time or even of the third dimension. In other words, when it comes to time, the phrase I use for ordinary time is sequential time. That's what we're experiencing here, past, present, and future, sequential time. But there are forms of time that are non-sequential. So that's a form of time that's in the fifth dimension. It's a non-sequential time. Great inventions in music have come from the fifth dimension in a flash, followed by years of working all of the details through to the fourth and third dimensions. Awakened psychics enter the fifth dimension and are able to read patterns of the future and past through the third eye. The fifth dimension can be related to the all-encompassing chakra located at the throat. People who are conscious in the fifth dimension have a deep universal love for other people. They are often humanitarians. Life for them is a joyous, even blissful experience with events happening in perfect timing. Other people like to be with them, for they are open, right there, present to the needs of others. The forces of their life are not so much consciously directed as directed superconsciously from the fifth dimension itself, which keeps all aspects in proportion. Of course, they also need a strong fourth dimensional capacity to follow through on these subtle directions, and a strong third dimension to sustain the forces of superconsciousness. If they find themselves struggling with forces of the third dimension, the rules and regulations of which may not be totally familiar to them, they resolve their problems from the fifth dimension. Solutions come clearly to them, and with strong fourth dimensional capacity, they follow through and do it. In the fifth dimension, we have no sense of ego, no personal me or mine, which after all are composed of the elements of the second and third dimension. People who experience this metamorphosis from ordinary consciousness and then discipline themselves so that the intensity of fifth dimensional being is sustained, love their fellow man with quiet compassion. They are great humanitarians and understand the predicament and problems of others without criticism. Timing in their lives is right and things happen for them. They are open. They're right there. They receive positive direction from the fifth dimension, which periodically, shall we say, adjusts their forces, keeping all other aspects in line. They find out how to do things. They're creative. Although the trained mystic can remain in intense states of the fifth dimension for long periods of time, the first experiences are generally brief, intuitive flashes. Yet even these seemingly short encounters represent vast mental, emotional, and spiritual adjustment. So potent are the superconscious forces. One does not have to wait for a still small voice to speak. It is always there, a functioning part of the mind and not a once-in-a-while exhilaration. Knowledge comes from nowhere. That's the purpose of Zen Koan, to awaken the intuitive faculty that transcends the reasoning mind. Ask a question, get an answer simultaneously. Knowledge comes right out of the light, right out of nowhere. Koans are carefully chosen questions that cannot be satisfactorily answered from the third or even the fourth dimension. The monk must reach deeper and deeper until he can get that intuitive vision. These strata operate totally separately from the third dimension and are extremely fascinating. However, the advanced jnani is not concerned with the intricate workings of the fifth dimension, which are vaster in their ramifications than the outer worlds. He is more concerned with stabilizing kaif, pure consciousness of the seventh dimension, and with that, beyond the stilled mind, the self-God. He knows that the fifth dimension is there, already totally unfolded, already perfect, already functioning to guide life along according to the spiritual laws. Religious people or mystics who have plunged deeply into the fifth dimension and come out of that experience in a new channel acquire a firm sense of mission or calling. They feel reborn, awakened, transformed. The world is suddenly different, and their whole life has changed within an abrupt period of time by having gone into the fifth dimension and returned to the fourth through this new channel. They inwardly perceive the ability man has to transform himself in this very life, and they often assume a spiritual destiny to fulfill the larger pattern. Still, other religious and mystical people have gone deeply into the fourth dimension, unraveled profound insights and brought forth great knowledge, and yet nothing changed within them. Why? They did not have the foundation, the control over the fluctuating forces of the second and third dimensions, and this alone kept them from going a little deeper into the fourth, where it meshes and melts into the fifth dimension. The second and third dimensions always demand awareness to return to them if it is not totally in balance. For instance, if we are unkempt and messy in our housekeeping. Good point there, messy in our housekeeping. So that's half of it. Next half, next phase. Thank you very much.